This is ESPN Esports. I'm Arda Ocal, and there are some major changes coming to Valorant, in particular to its ranked play system, and some of those changes will come into effect as early as October 13th with the launch of Act number 3. So there are some great quality of life changes, and then there is a giant elephant in the room as it pertains to pro play and Valorant in its future in esports that I can't wait to dive into. But first, let's get into those small quality of life changes, in particular for those that are grinding the game at higher levels. The first thing that was announced in a video dropped by Riot that was basically talking about what's going to change in Act 3 and also Episode 2 later, early next year, is that we're shrinking the queue in terms of who you can queue with in a team and their rank. So it used to be 6 levels. If you were Iron 1, for example, you could queue with Silver 1, and now you won't no longer be able to do so. You can only queue up with 3 levels higher than you. So if you're Iron 1, you can only queue with Bronze 1 or lower. So that is a big quality of life change as it pertains to ranked. Of course, there were a lot of pro players and at the cusp of pro players, Immortal and Radiant ranks, for example, that were complaining about the change or level of competition that they were finding. Oftentimes it was either too low or it just wasn't up to snuff when they get to those levels. Also, they were complaining about higher queue times, and you certainly saw that on stream with many of the pro players even trying to find a game when they were getting into ranked play. By the way, all of these changes will not affect non-competitive games. So unranked games, Spike Rush, etc., all of that will not be changed. This is only for ranked competitive games and your particular rank. You will be able to choose your preferred server. So that is a big one. So no longer, hopefully, fingers crossed, you will deal with ping issues and lag issues. Now, the video did say that it's not guaranteed. It's not like you can pick the server you want and that's immediately what you're going to receive. But this is definitely a giant step towards that. So definitely credit to Riot there for certainly listening to the user base, especially the hardcore competitive user base, saying we need better ping, we need better choices in our servers, and so now that is available. But the elephant in the room, this is the giant piece of news here, especially as it pertains to the future of Valorant competitive, starting with Episode 2 next year. They didn't give an exact time frame, but they said early next year there will be public leaderboards by region. That's right. A top 500 will now be available at that time of release of every region. So you'll be able to see exactly who the top ranked players are across multiple regions in a top 500 list. And this is absolutely huge for many reasons. From the player's point of view, an added incentive to grind. No longer will you be in the shadows grinding the game. If you're in the top 500, people can literally track your progression, and it's going to be better for you. You get to the top 500, then 4, 3, 200, you get into the top 50, the top 10, and somebody is able to tell the story of this player got signed to a major organization, grinding their way from the top 500. It took them several weeks, but then they made it to the top 10. There's the storyline perspective there, but also the scouting perspective. It's easier for orgs now to find these players if they need a sub for a weekend, or if they want to sign a new player, if they want to put together a new team. Now they can go to the leaderboards in their region or even other regions that they're looking to invest in and say, let's try out these players and see if there's chemistry there, or do background checks and see if these players will be a good match for our organization. The scouting system just got a lot easier in Valorant thanks to this public leaderboard system. So that is something that's going to change Valorant drastically in terms of competitive play and how organizations find players and how players get noticed. So that is a boon. The other thing I want to mention here is that this was a direct result of the community saying they wanted this. At first, if you recall, several months ago, and I remember this because I asked Riot about this, it wasn't necessarily in the plans. They had thought about it, but it wasn't something that was set in stone. They were deliberating with the idea, and they thought it may be in the future, but it wasn't like they had it on a blueprint and yes, we're going to release it in 2021. It was something that they wavered back and forth. As far as I understand from internal conversations, but it was really the outpouring of support for this idea from the community, and Riot took notice, and as a result, they changed it. So you have to give Riot credit here, because this is just another example of them making a change in the game or adding a feature that people wanted. And so Riot, from a communication standpoint, has been very good. We've been very clear in large part for what's happening with the game, what decisions are, what directions we're going, etc. So Riot has been very good with communication, but now they're continuing to prove with Valorant especially that they are good with listening to community feedback, because this is something that the community has wanted for a very long time, that players who want to become pro and organizations have wanted for a long time, and now it is finally there. Whatever the mechanics are, whatever the aesthetics are, I can't wait to see it. Act 3 is coming very, very soon. October 13th, in fact. And so some of these changes will come into effect that I talked about in this video rather soon, but some of them will have to wait until episode 2 next year. Let us know in the comments below what you think of the leaderboard. Let us know whether you think this is a great idea. If there are some players that you've already noticed that you think will crack the top 500, who do you think will occupy that first spot in different regions? Who do you think will be number 1 in North America, in Europe? Who do you think will stay number 1? Who do you think has a great shot of unseating those people? And do you think, here's a question that I would love to get an answer to from you watching this right now. Do you think that this will lead to more organizations, particularly in other regions? Because NA, that we've seen a lot of investment already, but do you think this will lead to other organizations, now that we have a public leaderboard, investing because they can see who the best players are, especially if they wait, say, half a month or a month, and just to let it permeate a little bit, percolate a little bit, and then see where those players are? Let us know in the comments below.